Hey guys, and welcome back to the EVSG podcast. My name is Lucas, and with the MLB playoffs right around the corner, it's time for the MLB Playoff Preview. Now, the way I'm going to do this is just go through each team, their star player, or the key players for offense and defense, their strengths, their weaknesses, and kind of how they got into the playoffs. Now, we're going to start off with the AL teams, and the first team that we're going to go through is honestly the team that I'm most surprised about and most impressed by, the New York Yankees. They won 103-59, but it wasn't a smooth road. They had injury after injury after injury. Players like Stanton. Stanton only played in 18 games. Aaron Judge had an injury at some point. It seemed like every starter that they had was injured at some point. And I think if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that the Yankees are going to win 103 games and have 56 different players start for them at some point, I would have called you crazy. I would have called you insane because I would have thought they probably won't even make the playoffs because of how good the top of the AL is. But they didn't. They made the playoffs, and they are the second seed in the American League and the third best team in the whole MLB. Now, the offensive key player for them, I'm going to go with DJ LeMahieu. He batted .327 this year, had 26 home runs, and had 102 RBIs. Now, it's easy to say someone like Judge or Stanton who's coming off of injury, but LeMahieu came in to this Yankees team and wasn't even supposed to be a starter. Then he batted his way into the starting lineup even after, players had come back from injuries. And he's proven to be a key part in this team, and I think he's a key part if they want to win the World Series. Now, the key pitcher, I'm going to have to go with Luis Severino. And again, because of injuries and because of the suspension to Domingo Germán, they're kind of thin at pitcher. And Severino obviously has missed most this year. He had a couple of starts. And he's going to be the key. He has to be the ace for that team. And it's a lot to ask for someone who hasn't really played this year, but they have to. He has to be. Because if he isn't, I don't think they really have a shot. And that's really about it about the Yankees. And we're going to move on to their matchup, the Minnesota Twins. Now, this team came into the season, people didn't really expect much from them, and then they won 101 games. They hit the most home runs in the league, over 300, as well as the Yankees also hit over 300. And they surprised a lot of people, including myself. Even when they were going off, I didn't really follow them much. They were a team that was kind of just under the radar, but just kept winning games. And I think their offensive key player is going to be the 38-year-old Nelson Cruz. At times he hasn't been the best hitter on this team, but overall, when you look at the season, he's been the best on the team. He batted .311, had 41 home runs, and 108 RBIs. And for a team fueled by the home run ball, it's kind of key to have your best player be the key player. And not only that, he's been there before. He's been in a couple of championships, and even though he's still looking for his first ring, I think he's going to be the key veteran who has to lead this team if they want to go far. Now, their key pitcher, or pitchers, I should say, needs to be their bullpen. It's been locked down. It's been very, very good. And it has to be, because their starters have not been good. And, besides Berrios, who has been solid this year, obviously, besides that, no one has below a 4 ERA. But their bullpen, most of their arms in that, has a sub-3. So I think if their bullpen stays strong, it stays good, and it stays being a lockdown bullpen, they can surprise some teams even in the playoffs. Now we're going to move on to the wild card teams, and the Tampa Bay Rays will be the first one to focus on. They won 96 games, coming off a 90-win season, and they were kind of under the radar. People didn't really look at them much, and they kind of were just thrown off as another team that, would be a good team, but not a great team. And they proved people wrong. They came in, and I was expecting a lot from them, but they came out, and they were the best team in the American League for a while. And it was fueled by the amazing pitching of their staff. They have so many great pitchers that, it's too many. They have like 2 extra starting pitchers that are possibly going to be in their bullpen, depending on injuries, depending on who they want to start. Now, I think their offensive key is going to be the rookie standout, Austin Meadows. He's 33 home runs on the year, 291 average, and he's just been a key player that has fueled that offense. I think he's going to be someone important to lead the team into the playoffs, even though it's his rookie year and he hasn't really done much in terms of playoff experience. Now, I think their key pitcher, and as much as I want to say Glasnow just to make a joke about the Chris Archer trade, I have to be smart not to take Blake Snell. He's, like I said, he's the ace on the team. He came in off a Cy Young year, and he started off slow. He struggled. But he started turning it around. I will say he started turning it around and then got hurt. Along with Glasnow, along with Yanni Kirinos, it seemed like that whole pitching rotation was being decimated by injuries. He did come back. He pitched a couple of solid games, and now he's here. He has to be the ace for that team. I know Morton is a good pick because he's a veteran. He's been there before. Glasnow, the rookie coming up. Kirinos. But I think Blake Snell, as the ace, he has to be the one that leads that team, especially when the Rays, while they have some good hitting, they are focused a lot on their pitching, and they have good pitching. And I think if they can pitch well, the pitchers that should throw the ball well, they could be a dark horse to maybe make a run. I'm going to be honest. They could be a very, very good dark horse pick. Now let's going to move on to the next wildcard team in the American League, the Oakland Athletics, or the A's. I'm going to call them the A's. After last year, people expected them to be a good, consistent playoff team. Obviously last year they started off super slow. They just, looked like normal A's. Another lost season. And then all of a sudden they blew up. They blew into the playoffs, and then they blew it against the Yankees. They couldn't get it out in that first inning, and I think gave up like 4 runs in the first, and it was over from there. And then they come into this year, like I said, expecting to make the playoffs, and they start slow again. But yet again, they come back and they explode, and now they're the home team in the wild card game. I think their key on offense are going to be the Mats, the guys at the corner, Matt Olson and Matt Chapman. Each had 36 home runs and 91 RBIs. Which, like I said, they're just kind of the 2 power hitters of the team. I think they need to be able to hit the ball. And then pitching is going to be a problem for them. I went through the roster, tried to find that one pitcher, but their 2 best pitchers, one's hurt and one's suspended for the playoffs. So it's going to be tough for them. But I think their key pitcher is going to be Mike Fiers. He went 15-4, but he had a 3.9 ERA, which clearly shows that his team just scored for him. But he is, I guess, the ace for that team right now, and he has to go out there and pitch well if they won't even make it past the wild card here. Now we're going to move on to probably the best team in baseball, just altogether, the Houston Astros. They're just insanely good. The best pitching staff, the best lineup. It's insane. I don't know how a team gets this good, but they are. They are. When you want to look at it, their pitching staff has Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole. They even have Zach Greinke, and that's just the 3 first starters. They still have 2 other starters who played well in the season, and they're gonna. I don't even know what to say about this team. They're just that good. But like I said, we're gonna give key players, and even though they're stacked on both sides of the baseball, I think they're key on offense. While I could go with people like George Springer at the leadoff, Alex Bregman, who had a big breakout year with 40 home runs, I'm going to go with Jose Altuve. He's a guy who kind of struggled this year, but has battled through injury. But he's still the anchor of that lineup. He's still the leader. In a lineup filled with stars, he's able to hold it down. And I think if he goes, that offense is going to go, and I don't think there's going to be a question about it. Now, pitching, like I said, with studs like Greinke, Verlander, and Cole, I think the biggest key for them is going to be their closer, Roberto Osuna. He pitched well. He pitched well this year. He's shown promise. He's shown to be consistent, but he has to continue that in the playoffs because they will get the ball to him, and there's going to be some close games, and he has to close it out. And he might go in there in a situation with runners on. He has to shut it down. He has to be the guy. He has to be the closer. I mean, it's that simple. Now it's time to move on into the NL teams, and we're going to go and start off with the Atlanta Braves, a team that won 97 games and kind of struggled early. When Acuna was batting third, they kind of struggled. They were average. They were about 20-20, and then they moved Acuna back to the leadoff, and they blew up again. They exploded. They ended up finishing over 30 games above 500, and I guess that kind of moves on to their offensive key is going to be Ronald Acuna Jr. He had 41 home runs, 101 RBIs, and when he moved back to that starting lineup spot, or the leadoff spot, he took off. He became their best player, and he has to continue that. I think he will. You know, he hits so many leadoff home runs that, I mean, he becomes a cleanup hitter at leadoff. It's crazy. Obviously, batted .280 and had a .365 on base percentage. As long as he's getting on base, that team will be fine. And when you look at their pitchers, obviously their best pitcher this year was Matt Soroka. He went 13-4, had a .268 ERA. But I think their key pitcher is going to be Dallas Keuchel. I've said this before with other key players, you know, like Cruz. He's been there before. He's won a championship with the Astros. He's been a Cy Young winner. He's been an ace. I think he has to go in there, show some veteran presence, show some postseason presence for a team with a lot of players who've been there only once. And he has to go there and pitch well. Especially, you consider the fact that their pitching staff in particular is super young. He has to be that veteran. And I think if Keuchel pitches well, I think they're a team to be scared of going forward. Now it's time to move into the wildcard teams. The Washington Nationals is first. A team that kind of surprised me. I thought the NL East, honestly, was going to be kind of not great. I thought the Phillies were going to take one of the wildcard spots, but the Nationals came through and they won a lot of games. Even after losing Bryce Harper, they proved they didn't need him. And I think it's a team that could be pretty good in the postseason. Their offensive key, in my opinion, is going to be Trey Turner. Now, you got Rendon and Soto, who are sexier options and had, frankly, better years. But Trey Turner, you know, the leadoff hitter, has to be table setter. He batted .298 this year. He was getting on base. And I think his speed is going to be a key. If he's on base, pitchers have to take him into account. He's that fast. He's super quick. And when he's on base, opposing pitchers are going to be focusing on him about as much as they focus on the batter. And it could lead to big hits from people like Rendon or Soto. So I think if he's getting on base, it's going to be a good postseason for them. Now, that being said, their key pitcher is going to be their bullpen, because their bullpen was just god-awful this year. It was super bad. It was never good, and it lost them a lot of games. They could have been a 100-win team if they had a bullpen such as the Twins, because they have the starters. You got Corbin, Scherzer, Strasburg. Those guys are going to get you innings, but they aren't going to always pitch 9-inning games, and they don't have a bullpen that can even close out a game. I mean, what's scary is that they could have a 5-run lead going into the 7th. If they have to take out their starting pitcher, they could give up that lead still, and it's scary for a team that, frankly, has a lot of good pieces. And I think that bullpen has to find something to change. Now we're moving on to the other NL wildcard team, the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that wasn't supposed to be here. With 32 games left, they were 67-63, I believe. I'm not quite sure the exact record. And in that day, they lost their NL MVP, possible back-to-back, Christian Yelich, a guy who had an amazing year, and it seemed like was carrying the offense. But instead of falling out of the race, the Brewers won 22 of those last 32 games, and I think a big key to that was the offense heating up. You know, kind of knowing that, okay, Yelich is gone, we have to step it up, and they did that. And I think one big key, and I think key for their postseason run, is going to be Lorenzo Cain. Like I said, he's heating up the right time, and he's going to be one of those table setters. Setting up, some of the players like Moustakas down lower with opportunities to get runs in. I think that offense has to be a big part because some of their pitchers, the pitchers have gone through injuries, they've had troubles, and it's going to be tough for their pitchers. Obviously, they have a pretty good bullpen, but a lot of injuries in that bullpen. Now, if we're going to look at it, their key pitchers, Brandon Woodruff and Zach Davies are two key pitchers that have to pitch well if they want a chance. Woodruff obviously had a good year, and they got hurt, but Zach Davies had a under-the-radar very good year. In nine more games, he had a better ERA. So, like I said, those two are going to be key pitchers. The problem with Davies is that he doesn't miss a lot of bats. So that's one thing Woodruff does really well. It's one thing Davies doesn't do very well, and I think it's kind of something he has to focus on a little bit more, but he's been very good otherwise. All right, it's time to move on to the next team, the St. Louis Cardinals, a team that, again, struggled early, but turned it on at the end. And I think there are a couple key players that did that. Players like Flaherty, obviously, with an amazing second half, and their offensive key, in my opinion, Tommy Edman. Now, Edman came up in the middle of the year, just how the Cardinals do it, had a .304 batting average and 11 home runs in 92 games, which those 11 home runs were more than he had in the minor leagues. That's the crazy part. He wasn't a home run hitter. Came up bashing them. I think he's the key to that offense. If he's hitting the ball well at second in the lineup, it's going to get Goldschmidt and Ozuna, players like that, people on base, and a chance to drop them in. Now, looking at their key pitcher, obviously, I think the obvious pick is Flaherty. He needs to get wins each time he goes out and pitches. But I kind of focus on the back end, and really what they need is a number 3. Whether it's Michaelis, Wainwright, or even Walker, if he is healthy, they have to have a number 3, I think. Because obviously I think Flaherty's, he's going to get you good games. And I think Dakota Hudson, again, is kind of on that spot where he's going to hopefully get you a game with they don't score more than 3-4 runs. But then there's those other games with Michaelis and Wainwright, who Wainwright's had a good, bounce back year, especially late in the season, and Michaelis has been kind of back and forth, but they've also struggled in games. You saw Wainwright just recently have a very bad game against the Cubs team who wasn't starting any of their stars. Now, that being said, if one of them can blow up, if Michaelis can have an amazing postseason, if Wainwright can have a vintage Wainwright postseason, or if Walker can have a 2015-esque postseason, team that other teams are scared to play. I'm just going to say that right now. Now we're going to move on to the best team in the NL by quite a bit, almost 9 games, not almost. The Los Angeles Dodgers. Not much to say about this team. They were good. I think they're key on offense. I tried to look through, the rosters like a, kind of under the radar player. So I think they're key on offense. It's gonna be David Freese. It's postseason time. He's back for clutch. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. It's gonna be Cody Bellinger. And like I said, I actually did look through the roster and try to find someone who's under the radar, kind of be a key player outside of the star. But he was just super important for this team. He led them in every single category. 47 home runs, 115 RBIs. 305 average, a 406 on base percentage, over 1,000 OPS, and had 15 steals, which again led their team. He's just super important for that team, and I think if he can play well like he should, I think that team will be unstoppable, at least in the NL. Obviously, with AL super teams over there, it'd be tough, but we'll just have to see when it gets there. Now, I think their key pitcher, obviously Ryu had a great year, and Buehler is young and coming up, but I think it's going to be Kershaw. It's a player he's definitely been here before. He's had troubles, obviously, but I think those are kind of misconstrued. Obviously, earlier in his career, he had some struggles, mostly against the Cardinals. But, as his career progressed, he's pitched really well in the postseason. Not great, not like super amazing like people expect him to, but he's pitched well. And I think he kind of just gets not screwed over, but he gets kind of a bad rap for pitching in the postseason. And I think it's something he definitely wants to switch up, and I think he can this year. I think he can. And if he can, I think he can finally push out all the notions like he can't pitch in the postseason, because he's still a great pitcher and one of the greats to do it of all time. Well, now it's time to move on to predictions for each game and each round, and this is whenever people are going to see that I'm not very good at predicting stuff. Anyway, we're going to move on. We're going to start with the wildcard game, obviously. I think the Nationals are going to beat the Brewers just basically off the back of Scherzer. I think he's going to pitch a gem, and I think it's going to move them on into the NLDS. The AL wildcard game, the Rays, I have beating the Rays beating the A's, mostly just because I think the Athletics are going to struggle in pitching. I think their pitching is going to struggle, and I think the Rays are going to take advantage and move on into the ALDS. Now we're going to move on into the LDSs, which we're going to start off with the Astros versus the Rays. And I think the Rays are not going to win the series. I think the Astros will win it 3-1. I don't really have a doubt. I think there will be a couple of close games, and I think the Rays will take one, but the Astros are just too dominant. They're too good, and I think they're gonna win this series. The next series, I think we're gonna go to the Yankees versus the Twins, and I have the Yankees winning this in 4 games, just because I don't think the Twins are really built for postseason play. They're built on the home run ball, not great pitching, and a bullpen, and I don't think that's gonna work out for them. I think they're gonna struggle, but I do think they'll take a game just because I think their hitting is too good for them just to get swept. All right, moving on to the NL, we're going to take the Dodgers versus the Nationals. And I have the Dodgers winning that series 3-1, mostly just because I just think the Dodgers are too powerful. They're going to outmatch them, but I do believe Scherzer will play well enough for them to take one game, but I just don't think the Nationals have the firepower to beat the Dodgers. All right, moving on into the last series of the LDSs is the Braves versus the Cardinals. Now, I think this is going to be the one entertaining series that there is. I think it's the one series that they're actually matched in, ability. And I think it's going to go to 5 games. And I'm going to be taking the Cardinals in 5. And here's why. I believe Flaherty is going to get 2 wins. I think he's going to pitch 2 games to get 2 wins. As long as Hudson, Michaelis, or even Walker gets a win, I think they can take that series. I think they have the ability to take it, and I think they will. Well, now we're going to move on into the championship series. And the first one, we're going to do the AL, the Astros versus the Yankees. And I'm going to have the Astros winning this in 6 games just because I think their pitching is too good, and they just have better hitters than the Yankees. And I think the big problem for New York is going to be the injuries that have piled up, and I think it's finally going to take their toll and finally cut them out of this season. I'm still impressed by what the Yankees did this year. They still won 103 games, and they still proved to be a very, very good team. I just think the Astros are the best team I've seen in a long, long time. Now we're doing the NLCS, the Cardinals versus the Dodgers, and no matter how badly I want to pick the Cardinals because of how much I hate the Dodgers, I have to be smart about it, and I will pick the Dodgers. I will say that it will take 7. It's kind of just it's kind of a wild out there guess because the Cardinals are super inconsistent, but I think their pitching will carry them to 3 wins, and I think they can win the series. But the Dodgers are still the best team in the NL. I mean, they're that good. They have so much weapons, so many good pitchers, and I just think they're gonna win the NL. Whether it's the Cardinals or Braves, I just think they're gonna win the NL. Now we're gonna move on into the World Series. The Astros versus the Dodgers, rematch of 2017. And I have the Astros. I think the Astros are going to win in 6. I think they're going to win in 6 again. They're too overpowering for any team in the MLB. And I've kind of mentioned it a couple of times before. They have a better pitching staff, a better lineup, and just they're not weak. They don't have any weaknesses. Maybe the bullpen from starters to Ozuna, but that's a small weakness. That's a nitpick weakness if you have to pick one. They don't really have a weakness. They're just that good. Do I think they can lose? Sure. I think any team can lose. I don't think they will. I think they're going to win the World Series. It doesn't matter who they play in the championship. It doesn't matter who they play in the championship series. I just think they're going to win. I don't think there's anyone that can stop them. Now, that's not to say they can't lose, but for me, I have the Astros winning in 6 in the World Series over the Dodgers. Anyway, guys, that's it for me, though. If you guys like this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload next. But as for me, this is Lucas, signing off for the EVSG podcast, and I'll see you guys next time.